Despite us having very large numbers, the support is not equal to the numbering, right? Which means that a lot of the youth in the workforce become part of what is called the gig economy. Do you think there's something going on which is why the younger queer kids are not taking on regular salaried monthly jobs and are preferring to work in the gig economy?
I mean, by just saying that my workplace is queer inclusive
Right.
doesn't mean that it is. Queer people of late are trending, right? So everybody wants a piece of us.
Right.
Um,
Everyone
but
has wanted a piece of me for five
amazing,
decades.
amazing. But the thing is, the point here is that again, one can say that they are inclusive, but what policies do they have in place? How is their work surroundings? Is it safe? Conversations around it. I mean, अब तक हम इंडिया में स्ट्रगल कर रहे हैं विमेन परसेंटेज हायर होने के लिए वर्कफोर्स में,
बिल्कुल।
तो एलजीबीटी तो उसके भी बाद में आता है, राइट?
बहुत बाद। Hola and welcome to the Queer Podcast and another informative episode on working it. That is the monetization and capitalization of one's brand along with social media. So fundamentally important pillars in today's time and very removed from my existence growing up. We see a bunch of young queer influencers, role models, opinion makers, and even those that seem to always be trending on social media. Over time, this has led to brand collaborations, a cross pollination of ideas and thoughts, and a good deal of kaching into one's bank account is possible. So, for my generation, the very idea that our queerness could be financially viable, I mean, that in itself is alien. We were a generation that was criminalized for being queer. I mean, the only thing I could think of is maybe sex work. You made some pennies. But now to navigate this world where you can be using your queerness and your art and your talent to inform, educate, entertain, and earn is very exciting. And I think this is my last chance to do something about it. Better late than never. Here I am in my attempt to start understanding how this works and how one can create and monetize a brand. Okay. And who better? Someone I've always sort of admired from afar and only gotten to know recently. The dynamic, go getting, vibrant, and her phone never stops, Sakshi Juneja.
Hi. Thank you, Ashish.
Co-founder of Gaysi, now a queer household name in India. You're here to help educate on making it rain. Yeah, Sakshi. Very warm welcome. Thank you for coming in. I know how busy you are. So I did some gentle stalking, and I believe you're originally from the Delhi, from a large, lovely Punjabi family. Went to Australia to study, and then how did you end up in Muggy, Mumbai?
Firstly, I am from Bombay.
Oh,
So very much from Bombay.
Fake. I'm a victim of fake news.
Very much from Bombay.
Oh.
Yeah, grew up in Juhu for a good part of my life, young life. Then went to Mithibai College, 11th.
Okay.
And then I went to Australia, did my high school there, then undergrad, and came back to India. My dad passed away, so I had to
Sorry.
come back and join family business. So came back, joined my brother in family business, and yeah,
Sorry, what did you specifically study in Australia?
I did my undergrad in Bachelor of Marketing
Ah,
and with sub major as advertising.
wow. Okay, so now already it's starting to make some sense.
Yeah, but back then I just did it because I had to do it.
Right.
But yeah, and then came back. Was very enthused about joining the family business also. Trying my best to apply whatever I had studied in those 7-8 years in Australia.
Right.
Till I realized that in India things work in a very Indian manner.
Sure.
So I don't think I used much of my outside education. But what did come handy was a bit of awareness around my own sexuality, which was quite floaty when I was in India, right? Like, for instance, when I was growing up also, there was no language. the word lesbian was never even used.
Correct.
But I never had that "Hi, मेरी जिंदगी खराब हो गई है" moment, you know.
Touch wood.
So luckily came from that sort of a privileged space where my intimate feelings for women, or to explore intimacy with women, was a very smooth, free flowing experience. Like, I never questioned it, I just went along with it.
Nice.
With men, I knew like I could be best friends, but nothing compelled me to go further, nothing pressured me to go further.
Right.
And obviously, when I went outside, though I was very much in closet, again, lack of language, lack of sensibilities. However, slowly I was exposed to queer culture back in Australia.
Yes.
And somewhere, you know, I could find myself and recognize and put names, put words to the feelings that I had for women.
Great.
So that, in a way, that helped quite a bit.
Sure. Open
And
up your world.
yeah, and still in a closet way, but still, like, you know, it was in and out sort of a thing. I did date women there.
Okay.
Like I used to date women in India before. But in India, it was more like, you know, again, lack of language. But there you could talk about it. So I was living a nice dual life in Australia also. So my friends, very close friends, had no idea. But I used to go out on dates with women, or date women in the same group, but no one had an idea about it. That pretty much continued when I came back.
Okay.
Again, hung out with friends. I had to remake friends. Because I spent good chunk of my life.
Yeah. 7, 8
outside.
of those
Yeah.
years is a
Yeah,
formative
and I
time.
left when I was 16.
Right.
Right. So by the time I got back,
23.
friends I had, 23, 24,
24.
and friends that I had in school in 11th grade, like, there was distance. And luckily at that time, blogging was the new thing.
Right,
So
right.
I would say the first step to social media, what we know today. And so I started blogging, and through blogging, I ended up making friends. So I used to
Wow.
organize Mumbai blogger meet. So I think somewhere I was like prepping up for everything that I work in today.
Right.
So I met people. I met my then girlfriend through people, and again, we used to all hang out. Some thought we are sisters, some thought, you know,
Yeah, Didi.
Didi, aspirational Didi, and all
Yeah.
that, until the breakup happened. And that's when I decided that, you know, I might as well just come out. Came out to my brother, I came out to my siblings, not my mom. Then my privilege kicked in, and I requested my brother that I need to go away on a break for good 2-3 months.
Right. To sort your head out.
Just a break. And he was nice enough, and he was supportive enough, and he said, "ठीक है, जाओ." You know, it was like Simran ji le apni zindagi type moment. So I went to New York to my best friend, and yeah, one day I was sitting in a cafe, and that's where I started Gaysi the blog. And
my God.
yeah, because I had, with my then girlfriend and with another common friend who I met through blogging, who was sitting out of London, a lesbian woman living with her partner, etc. And we used to keep discussing that we need a space, you know, like a digital space for queer women, Indian queer women. So I was like, abhi yahan baithe hain, to might as well, you know, start that.
And what year was this?
This is 2008.
Okay, so literally 16 years.
16 years, yeah. And yeah,
Amazing.
from a cafe, and we were like, we knew like 4-5 other queer women, and tabhi queer word bhi nahi use karte the. It was lesbian,
Yes,
bisexual
yeah,
women, and bas
yeah,
that's it.
yeah.
So, and we used to just share our personal stories. Some used pseudonames, and some were using their real names.
Yeah.
And it just organically grew from there.
Yeah, because that resonates, because about 16 years ago, when I think there was Romeo or Men for Men in India.
We had Pink Sofa.
Oh, Pink. So see, we didn't.
Australian.
Okay,
Australian.
I didn't know that. Anyway, so then they used to have a male room or chat room and a female chat room, and I finally forced my very dignified and reserved lesbian friend, like, listen, why don't you get on an app? I've just discovered this whole world and everything, and there's a chat room, and you'll meet the ladies and all this. We went into the Asia room. She was the only lesbian in Asia on that chat
Yeah.
forum. So I resonate with what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, for me, relatability was most important, right? So when I came out to my family, and with that, I started coming out. In fact, Harish Iyer and Parmesh were the two first people I came out to.
Oh, your
And I
aunties.
yeah,
Yeah.
and for me it was like an addiction then. It's like I just wanted to come out and come out
Yes.
and come
Yeah.
out, and I wanted to just be around queer people. Like forget intimacy part of it. I just wanted to hang around queer people. I wanted to feel grounded. And I still remember going on Google, searching lesbian women support group, this, that. Pata nahi fifth या
कुछ भी
sixth
दे
में
दो.
हाँ like fifth sixth page पे or maybe even further Labia
Yes.
came up, and I reached out to them, said, I want to meet you, I want to talk, like hang out. And I still remember they met me at Rangshada in Bandra at the terrace at the bar, and they were coming back from a protest,
Okay.
right? And it was amazing just talking to them. However, somewhere I felt that this is, I don't relate, right?
Right.
Like, so like activism, grassroots activism तो मतलब बहुत दूर की बात थी. It
हाँ.
was, for me, it was still like social element, like people I could sit and
Right.
chit chat, have a conversation
Yeah.
with and all. And I was like, I met them, but something still felt a little amiss, right?
Right.
With that, then I got a little more pushy with Gaysi, to kind of put more conversations out there. Did my best to kind of get in touch with more queer women and give, try have a conversation with them and bring those conversations out on the blog. I started attending Mumbai Pride, meetings
Right.
before Pride March, and and so all like I started putting that physical work in just finding and looking for more queer women.
Right. And creating
Yeah, and just have those conversations up
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
And it was so lovely because then it's like then we started getting emails of Indian queer women sitting outside India and
Right.
what they felt, how they were navigating their queerness with their families, in the US, and then obviously the conversations over here. And then that led to then cis gay men coming and saying we want to have a conversation, then trans persons coming and saying we want to have a conversation. So it very organically grew.
Wow, that's amazing. So you set this up in a cafe, it came organically and everything, but why this name Gaysi?
um I've if you look at Gaysi's history, we pride ourselves that we come up with fun names.
Right.
And the origin started from the company's name itself, or the platform's name itself is Gay and Desi. So you merge it together, becomes Gaysi. I still don't remember who thought of it. Was
Right.
it me or the girl with whom I set up the blog?
Right.
But yeah, and since then we've kept to our tradition of trying to find fun, funky
Cool
names,
yeah.
and
no, because then when
yeah.
you explain it, Gaysi really works.
Yeah.
And I did read that thing that even though acceptance was not too difficult for you, you did find a lack of awareness, and that's where all this originated from.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was more like I was just too busy finding people, that I never really looked for approvals or anything within my home, right? Again, my privilege kicked in. My family was pretty chilled out. Like I'm working, I'm at home for dinner, and us beach mein then what all I do didn't really
Didn't
matter
matter.
much to them. And again, I would say my journey has been pretty fortunate also,
Right,
right?
yes.
I'm just meeting the right people at the right time who together with me help push Gaysi to what it is. So what I've experienced in the 16 years is that people will come and people will go, people will give and take what they want from this space,
Right.
and or even come back,
Right.
that is the point of a community space. And again, I had some very key people who helped me take it from one level to another because alone I wouldn't have been able to
Right,
do it.
right.
And what one also needs to keep in mind is that when Gaysi was growing, there was no template, right? There was
Absolutely.
nothing,
Absolutely.
right? so it was very much like, okay, dekhte hain kya hoga, okay, dekhte hain kya hoga, right? So Gaysi blog started in 2008, and in 2013 with this queer woman Priya Gangwani, who's Gaysi's other founder, though she stepped down later on. She was in Brussels, and she was coming back to India, and I told her, I said, listen, you know what? I want to formalize Gaysi, like I want to make it a company, and you're the only person I trust
Right.
to do this with.
Right.
And she was like, okay, fine, let's do it. So I still remember we both put 50-50K
Ah.
and made it official, opened a bank account, registered the company name, saying कि जो भी पैसे आएंगे वापस इसमें ही जाएंगे. But we should try and see whether it's viable.
Correct, correct.
Stop putting money from our pocket, make it
Right.
official and good.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, so amazing. Gaysi is now 16 years old, has over 66,000 followers at the last count for me, and have done so much cool queer stuff in many, many ways, right? So coming to the team, this is something that interested me, and this might reflect a bias that I'm carrying. The website shows me 5 female presenting folks: Sakshi, Priya, Tejasvi, Anushka, and BRC. Most of the preferred pronouns seem to be she, her, they. And perhaps BRC is non-binary or trans presenting.
They are a Dalit writer, editor.
Oh, wow.
So every time we call out, we are still doing our best to encourage and make it a safe space for Gaysi, the digital space, to have Dalit-led conversations.
Great,
So
great.
we got BRC on board, who's a Dalit editor.
Right. That's
so
great
they
to
also,
know.
So here, there, even with our brand projects, we get them on board.
Right.
For to collaborate with
Yeah.
us, and even Tej, who is our digital content editor, they are non-binary.
Right.
Super smart.
Right. I think this is the first. Is women-led the right term that I should say?
I mean, I would say LBT non-binary.
LBT non-binary. Yeah.
And to be honest, it's been very intentional. And it's something that I don't shy about.
Superb.
I have never.
Superb.
In terms of work, in terms of conversations, in terms of even brand collab, brand push, we try our best to push LBT narratives more there. And in
Because the
terms
G's
of
have had the spotlight for very
Right,
long,
but
actually.
I mean, it's not that. I mean, I have lovely cis gay men contributors as well, and
Yes.
who are part of the team and who work
Right,
with us.
right.
But what I just feel that in terms of queer content, queer narratives, we are at a place where no matter how much we put is less.
Right.
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 So there is room for everybody.
Correct.
Some places you need to just push a little more.
Right.
And that's where we come into play, where we, like I said, LBT narratives for us, LBT trans narratives for us,
Correct.
always
Correct.
take a little more importance than
And I
others.
think that's amazing.
And our followers, and I would say Gaysi's followers pretty much understand that, and somewhere I would like to believe that they align with it as well.
Right.
And hence, we've even got this far. And again, like, and in terms of inclusivity within queer spaces, again, it's something that neither you nor I can avoid it anymore.
Correct.
Right? Intersectionality is very much at play. It's
Yes.
in our face. So what you see in mainstream media, the conversation is still very much on a superficial level. It's like they just discovered us yesterday.
Agreed.
But when you come into a Gaysi space, and if you go through our website, the kind of conversations you will find there are far more deeper. And I feel the mainstream media will take a little time to
get there. Yeah.
I mean, till today we get at times, requests from media houses where they still are looking for sad narratives, especially around LBT, non-binary persons.
Yeah.
And at Gaysi, again, online, we pay a bit more emphasis on putting positive narratives out there. While we talk about queer struggles, but we also talk about queer joy, what
Yeah.
brings us joy. What are our aspirations, what are our desires, and how we go about living those lives.
Yeah.
And
And how much can you keep crying and this ruin? You know what I'm saying? That narrative has really been done to death, and I'm not taking away from the struggles of our community at all, right? But I do think you have a great instinct for everything that is looking forward and looking ahead, which is what I think is a
Yeah.
secret superpower that you have, because you're being able to hit and ride the right snowball, as it were. And that's showing,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And I did think that, and I have had this discussion with other people in the community,
Yeah.
that don't you see the fact that Gaysi is dominated by women is bringing something very fresh and thank God finally
Yeah.
to the table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And women
So I
and
think that's
non-binary
great.
persons. Let's
Yeah.
not
And
forget that.
non-binary persons and
Uh,
little Dion, who is the little gay rep, isn't it? The name, his name Dion. Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. So, right. So, going back to the bigger picture concerning our community, a rough rule of thumb is that we are about 10% of the population. So, that's already at least 135 million people in our country, right? This is a huge potential swath of consumers for brands, right? The pink pound we've heard of, the pink dollar we've heard of, and it is slowly being recognized, correct? Any inclusive marketing leads to brand trust, loyalty, and love. We've surveys show that. In the Ipsos Global Advisory Survey on LGBT plus pride, 58% of Indian netizens showed support to brands that had queer inclusivity, which is very encouraging. Yet, contradictorily, only 9.5% of surveyed organizations showed queer support, and most of these were the large MNCs that we know and love are the ones who are there that show support across marginalized demographics. So, despite us having very large numbers, the support is not equal to the numbering, right? Which means that there, a lot of the youth in the workforce become part of what is called the gig economy. Uh, I'm presuming someone of your generation and experience knows the gig economy, but for those who don't know, that is basically being a freelancer, working on turnkey projects, correct? Which you work a lot with that uh, niche, right? Of people, like you said, freelance illustrators, writers, collaborators. What is your take on this? Like, do you think there's something going on, which is why the younger queer kids are not taking on regular salaried monthly jobs and are preferring to work in the gig economy?
I mean, see, what I would say is that you have to give it a little time,
Okay.
right? People, queer people, by just saying that my workplace is queer inclusive
Right.
doesn't mean that it is, right?
Got to.
Queer people of late are trending, right? So everybody wants a piece of us.
Right.
Um,
Everyone
but
has wanted a piece of me for five
amazing,
decades.
amazing. But the thing is, the point here is that, again, one can say that they are inclusive, but what policies do they have in place? How is their work surroundings? Is it safe? Conversations around it. I mean, अब तक हम इंडिया में स्ट्रगल कर रहे हैं विमेन परसेंटेज हायर होने के लिए वर्कफोर्स में,
बिल्कुल.
तो एलजीबीटी तो उसके भी बाद में आता है,
हाँ,
राइट?
बहुत बाद में.
But the good thing is these conversations have started, and I can say from, again, my experience at Gaysi, the fact that in the last 2 years we've worked with more corporates with their internal communication in their policy making, in the conversations they want to have within their organization, in order to make it queer safe, queer inclusive.
Right.
And you see more and more organization, and that number is only going to go up. Like you said, 10%, right? I would say 13 to 15% if a given population is queer. And the more safe spaces we make, the more access to resource we provide, the more queer people will come out.
Right.
The more younger people will have the opportunity or the choice of exploring themselves and getting to know themselves better in relation to family, in relation to intimacy, in relation to workforce, etc., etc.
Right.
And that percentage is only going to go higher.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And in corporate spaces, whether they recognize it now or not, but the point is, in future, these are the kids who will be part of their workforce, right?
Right.
So for them, they have to keep up with time. And if they don't,
Right.
they will see a good chunk of contributing workforce being going to other organizations
Right.
that have taken the effort, right? Have already started.
Right.
So I think it's for corporates especially, it's a or even brands for that matter. I think it's a place where they need to now invest in. Like either you do it properly or you don't do it. This is a conversation I have with any brand that approaches us. I'm
Right.
like, don't do a half-ass job.
Right.
एंड डोंट थिंक कि आपने आज पैसा डाला तो कल वो उग के निकल आएगा, वो नहीं होएगा.
Right.
You have to understand that you are trust building right now.
Correct.
And that requires consistent work.
Correct.
So don't come to Gaysi and say कि okay Pride Month में हमको एक ये activity
Which
करनी है.
is what happens with a lot of
Yeah, and
brands.
the first thing we say is no. Like either you partner with us for 3 months, 4 months, let's chart out a plan where we consistently work.
Right.
Then we come back to the drawing table to see what worked, what didn't work, how we can revise it, blah 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 blah. Or I tell them कि आप मत करो तो better है. वो उल्टा that is fine, right? It's not that आपकी जिंदगी अभी बंद हो जाने वाली है, right? मत करो, it's okay.
Right. That's great.
Yeah, I mean, why, right? I mean, doing half-ass job will get them only into trouble.
Yeah.
Than anything. And today you have to understand again, queer people are smart. They understand where it's queer baiting,
Yes.
where it's just done to trend in the month of Pride.
Correct.
And a brand or a corporate is truly looking at allyship, truly looking at creating safe
Right.
spaces.
Do you think the fact that we face a lot of inherent challenges like prejudice, stereotype, bullying, etc., in the traditional workspace, right? That does not mean Gaysi, has led to many younger queers preferring their autonomy, right? Like we said, gig economy. Benefits, flexibility, anonymity, entrepreneurship, empowerment, recognition of talent, safe, supportive. Fab influencers we have now, right? Maybe all this is sounding very naive to you, Sakshi, but for me to see that someone like Rani Kohinoor Sushant tops queer lists with 1.8 million followers in this country, right? So it's amazing to see that outpouring of love and support for Rani, who is a very talented and bright and amazing individual, right? There's also Trinetra, and Rani and Trinetra both were guests here last season. There's Durga Gaude, Ankit Bhuptani, Harish Iyer, Anvesh Sahu, Nakshatra Bagwe, Grace Banu, Alex Mai. I'm going through a list because I think it's like exciting for me. Rishi Raj, Maitrayani, Mahanta from Assam, Duti Chand, Gauri Sawant, V. Kweram Aditya. I'm finishing. Rohit Singh and Shantanu Dope. Big names on social media. Big numbers of followers, all in very exciting different areas. Pratna Prasad, who uses humor. Anish Bhagat, Ella D. Verma, who's this up and coming, lovely, smart, and mad trans model who I've worked with on. I hosted some mental health capsules with her. Priyanka Paul. So there is now this capacity for talented queer individuals to become recognized individuals and artists and monetize it and actually start opening up those fields for queer people, right? Do you think that's something you see happening clearly in the future?
Yeah, I mean, and see, the world has changed around us quite a bit, and especially post-COVID, right?
Or even post-COVID, you're
a
marking a big
lot.
change. Okay.
I, especially in queer space,
Right.
I feel there's a huge change. Like where in our LBT bar nights, etc. Pre-COVID, we used to get like 150 people. Today, we get 300 people showing up. Right?
Wow.
And that's a big jump.
What do you think COVID has had to do with this?
I think
I'm just
COVID,
curious.
Perhaps just because of so much digital dependence, everyone went on an overdrive in terms of, I suppose, conversations, right?
Right.
You'll see a lot more mental health conversation,
100%.
at least in queer space.
Yes.
Take a step forward and be more in the forefront during COVID.
Right.
Because of scenarios that queer people were in.
Right.
Right? Abusive family homes, workplaces, as in, like, if they're living a hostel life and things like that. So that led to a lot of conversations around being queer, safe space, mental health, etc.
Correct.
A lot more queer people, I suppose, started dabbling in different
Areas.
areas, which they could talk about on social media. So
Yes.
it like today, it's like even in our sleep, the first app we end up opening are like, at least for me, it's either I open Instagram or Swiggy. Sorry for these brand blogs. It's either of these two. And I just feel a lot more queer conversation came into the forefront.
Right.
You had a lot more queer artists, illustrators, designers put their work out there. You had the queer influencers also started attracting audience.
Yes. And brands and all
Exactly, among the larger influencer category.
Right.
Right. So the good thing is that over the years now there are these career alternates available.
Yes.
There is access to these,
Right.
at least in metro cities, to English speaking audience, etc., etc. And hence, they are able to do it. But I would still not. I mean, I would still say that they are the ones who've made it. There's still a lot of queer people who have not.
Sure. More,
hence,
of course, more.
Hence, in Gaysi, we try to focus a lot more on, and at least from this year, we want to do a lot more in the space of skill building.
Okay.
Where we kind of, because we dabble a lot with art design and performative art, so we want to do more skill building activations in these spaces, so
Right.
that tomorrow they become our talent pool,
Yes.
right?
Right.
Otherwise it's the same people we will keep
Seeing again and again.
and as people who are content curators, creators, it's our job to push our own boundaries.
Correct.
And I feel this is how we push our own boundaries.
Right.
If,
And
if you
create
very
new.
very rarely you'll see Gaysi work with a popular name. Very rarely. The whole idea here is to keep giving platform to newer
that's
and newer and
interesting.
newer people.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, and yeah, so I think skill building is one way of looking at it.
Okay, all this so clever, so instinctive and all. How do I make money, na? I think the only chance in my 50-year-old years of living was once in Voodoo, one very corpulent plus size Arab offered 4,000, 1996, and I was like, no. And then all my life I've been thinking, yaar, ek chance to tha, wo jawani ko lootne. What do? I'm 54, which is older demographic, non-fictional filmmaker primarily, but I also, through COVID, like you said, I started studying, training to be a mental health counselor. So I'm a queer affirmed counselor. I host this podcast. I do a bit of acting, bit of writing. I have a very warm, wonderful soul. I have a very giving ass. What do I do to make money?
I think you need to put yourself more out there.
Oh, God.
It's important.
It
It's
is,
very
right?
important. You have to be seen. And this is something I even joke up with my partner about, saying that, once the law, when same-sex marriage gets legalized, let's get married, and then we'll get divorced also soon, so that we normalize divorce and we'll talk about it in the media. But it is important. Trust me, visibility, like, because we are in queer spaces and we live in a happy queer bubble,
Right.
we feel ki arey, there's so much happening. But
Right.
when you walk out of that bubble, you realize that, like I told you earlier also, there's just so much to fill. A lot of the conversation that we are having, a lot of brand interaction, a lot of acceptance, whatever, is what the last 6-7 years
Right.
phenomena.
Yes.
But again, a lot of it is in our happy bubble. We still have to be seen outside the happy
Right.
bubble.
Those safe, privileged pink
Exactly,
spaces.
exactly. I mean, even today, like in our country, you ask me to think of a queer lesbian celebrity. I can't think. Like,
Yeah.
I really have to think hard, and I can probably name one, two. More of
So
us
you're
need
saying
to be
push
out there.
yourself out there. But the thing is, I find some of the content that people put up, like my lunch and my dinner and my, like that, I find really futile. Like I'm not
You don't have
understanding.
to do that, but you
Right.
can put yourself out in spaces that you feel you're a value add.
Okay.
Right? Like, so in your filmmaking spaces,
Yes,
production
which I
house,
do
OTT,
try a lot,
OTT
constantly
platform,
pushing.
and it's not about telling them ki ye mera kaam hai, mujhe lo, but just nudging them to say, let's have a conversation on queer sensibilities,
Right.
and how that could benefit you.
Right.
and I can help you in that.
You
Yeah.
must. Now that you've said it on
Oh,
record.
you can help
Oh,
them in
oh,
that.
see, that's what, this is
So,
it.
so the thing is, you are the expert in that. You understand films,
Right.
and you understand what it is to be queer,
Right.
and things that you don't understand in queer spaces. You know to connect to the right people who can
Yes,
come and do
absolutely.
that job,
Which is what
right?
this whole podcast
Um,
is about,
and
actually, in a
and that is
sense.
how you put yourself out there.
Right. So a lot of, we're coming toward the end of this. So a lot of culture comes and goes full circle, right? So Facebook, for example, already now is like an old person's playground. Insta is a younger demographic. Where do you see the whole social media trend heading, and what do you see happening in the process to the queer community?
I mean, I think we should. There'll be more and more apps coming in, going,
Right.
and now people are smart enough to jump on it. It's always the game of who gets there faster, quicker,
Right.
and understands the space,
Right.
and makes most of it. Right?
And
Like,
does it in the way that,
yeah,
you've been
yeah.
talking
I
about.
mean, look at us. Like for Gaysi, our Instagram page is what brings brands to us.
Yes, it
It is
is.
our front face,
Purely.
right? And again, some years ago, if someone would have told me this, I would have been like, "Ye kya hai?" Like I used to look at Facebook and say, "Ki chalo, at least this is a medium where we can talk about our events, so that other queer people can know about our
Can see,
events and
yes.
come
Yeah.
to our space."
Yeah.
To today, Instagram, a space like Instagram becoming such an important
Right,
aspect,
right.
Similarly, today, how people, I mean, simple things like how people use newsletters
Right.
to monetize their work. It's interesting, and queer people do that as well.
Yes.
Today, you look at stand-up comedians, how they use their work
Right, right.
to monetize it.
Right.
So I mean, kids are smart.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
the younger lot. I mean, today you have a little kid. Even the little kid knows how to swipe.
Yes.
It's,
Yeah. Yeah.
so I think any new sort of app or another social media platform that pops up, I think queer people will be good at adopting
Right.
and
Adapting
understanding.
and
Yeah.
working it. Yeah. Because so a lot of this, a lot of it perhaps has come across as greed, but I think some of my thought process in doing this episode with you was that I do come across a lot of kids who, because of financial dependence on their families, have never been able to live their queer lives. Because and when they ask, especially in the mental health space, I'd be like, don't come out until you know for sure that you can manage worst case scenario, right? So I think the need for financial independence runs across gender, sexuality, everything, which is why I think I wanted to have this discussion with you, that I think creating gig economies, creating opportunities, and loving knowing the fact that you actually push younger queer talent. I think this is very important in also creating an ecosystem for kids that where they can survive with,
Yeah, and not just survive, thrive.
thrive.
Right?
Exactly.
Survive,
Yeah,
thrive, reign, everything.
Right,
Like,
right.
I mean, or at least have access, right?
Right.
Whether they use it or not, it's up to them.
Yeah.
But
No,
the
no,
whole point is to give them that
yeah.
space, give them that access, at least the knowledge that there is something like this, and as and when and if and ever they require, they can go to it.
And like you said, the possibilities of an amazing queer life.
Yeah,
with
and because
all
you have to, like, I'll
boxes.
give you a simple example. The reason why we focus a lot on art design skill building is because the kids that we work with, even whether it's on full-time basis or freelance basis, at times we realize that queerness in your design, in applying in your work, is not taught in schools. So Gaysi,
not.
while we work as a media house, while we do, assignments and jobs and things like that, projects with people, we are also a school because we are teaching them those sensibilities. And after working with them consistently, it's where today where we can say, okay, chalo, inko confidently आप एक project दे सकते हो, which we know they'll be able to execute it, right?
Great.
And then how to mix something as simple as how to mix a brand with queer, keeping your queer sensibilities intact, but also your brand guidelines and things like that,
Yeah, which
and
you all
make
pull off
it
very successfully.
and it takes work.
Yeah.
It takes a
No, no, of
lot of
course.
work.
Yeah.
Like I know
And
how much hard work
thought.
Priya puts in,
Yeah. Yeah.
sitting. And so this is why we said, skill building is something that we really need to work on.
Which is part of the same conversation we're having, that
Yeah,
empower
yeah.
them so that,
And that is your talent pool
yeah,
tomorrow.
correct. Correct. Sakshi ji, this has been super, super enlightening, as I knew it would be actually. I want you to become my manager if you can squeeze in 10 minutes a day from your schedule and make it rain for me. Thank you for setting up Gaysi, for setting up creating such a vibrant space, platform for the queer community, for brands to collaborate, for conversations to happen. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts, for coming into the Queer Podcast, and wish you nothing but rainbows and lots of love.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
कितनी
And I'll look
dignified
at a
है.
way of monetizing you also.
Yeah, please do. Lap dance available. Yeah, whatever. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.